Welcome to episode 15 of the TruYou Unfiltered podcast. I'm your host over here, Kyle Persley, bringing you insights in navigating life's complexities and achieving a holistic success. Today, we're joined by Randy, CEO of Maxio, a leader in the billing and financial operations for high-growth B2B SaaS companies. With 20 plus years of experience, Randy has held leadership roles at Microsoft, Salesforce, Rocket Fuel, and how do you say it?
Percolate.
Percolate, yeah.
The coffee.
I was struggling with that earlier, man. But he's been crushing it in acquisitions and transformations, successfully sold multiple companies, and making him an expert in scaling and selling SaaS businesses. So we'll dive into strategies behind high-growth SaaS, financial agility, and what it actually takes to sell a company for, what, $127 million?
Different prices for the different companies.
Different companies, yeah.
We can talk about that, multiples, what that means, and how to think about it, and yeah.
That actually sums it all up, guys. So expect real-world lessons from this and challenges and victories from one of the industry's best. So stay tuned for eye-opening conversations on unlocking SaaS growth and agility. Let's crush it. All right. So it's a mouthful sometimes, man. I got to make sure the intro is almost on point. I want it to be as best as possible so they know who the man, the myth, the legend is. And I know selling companies is a great thing to talk about, but I know there's a lot of things that you deal with along the way, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was reading, like I was telling you before this even started, I was like, it was like you said it's 8 secrets now.
Well, it's now 8 secrets of success for SaaS CEOs. It's on my LinkedIn. People can take a look. I have, I think, 6 of them written out, but the intention is to write a book.
Well, what I love about that, man, is like you even talked about how like, challenges, right? Like just CEOs and like people will speak frankly about their CEOs.
Yeah.
And and it's like you said, it was a very eye-opening experience. So, what made you want to be a CEO? And what were those experiences like?
Well, I think if I think back to my career, it's really been 3 phases. First phase, I was in the military, went to the Naval Academy, and then I served. I was a bombardier navigator for a bit, and I went and taught literature for a bit. And that was about 10 years. And then I was in corporate sector, working my way up the corporate ladder. As you mentioned, I was at Microsoft, Salesforce, 1 or 2 other companies. One of the early internet digital agencies called Avenue A, which became a quad-on.
Okay.
Was bought by. Yeah, they would say they were the inventor of the 1x1 pixel, which we used for all of that tracking. And then in 2015, I moved into a CRO role at a public company, and then I've been in CEO roles and CSO roles since then. But the genesis, I think, was initially my inclination, my desire, my ambition was to be in the Navy and be a captain of a ship, captain of a squadron. And I got out after about 8 years of active duty. And as I was fortunate to go to business school, and as I was sort of thinking about what did I want my career to be, that idea of being the captain of a ship or the captain of a squadron translated to being a CEO of a company. And I don't know where it comes from. It's just more of like a motivation. At some point, you want to be the guy or the gal, right? You want to be the dude that has to make a decision when everything's going sideways, and you're going to help, drive the ship, the company forward. So I think that was the impetus for the desire.
And by the way, I appreciate your service. Like my dad, my dad served in the Army, like back in like Desert Storm days. And, being raised in just a military household and things like that have really helped me out. So again, not just appreciate your service, but also appreciate the values that do come with that.
Well, thank you. Sounds like your dad and I may have been about the same age then, because I was in the Gulf in 93 and 95. So after Desert Storm, it was Southern Watch. But yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. I would have paid to fly jets. I mean, it was really one of the greatest things in the world to travel. In my life, my service was, I tell people, it was relatively easy. I sat on an aircraft carrier, ate pizza, ate, ice cream when we got home for our missions. I had air conditioning. I was sleeping in a cot. Like if your dad was in the Army, he was doing the real service. So, it was a different life.
Man, because I also know, not to get too crazy off topic here, I know that a lot of the times when you're traveling, you get exposed to different cultures, and you're gonna have a laugh, man. My dad, growing up, was very sheltered. and raised Southern Baptist, there's nothing wrong with that neither. But it's just like you don't realize what the world has to show you until you join the military, and he goes off to Desert Storm and all that stuff too. So when you say like living it's a different life, like it's crazy what you do experience.
It is. And I think, look, it's a lesson for all of us. The world is a small place. And I remember one of the reasons I joined the Navy was it's a poor man's way to travel the world. I got to see many different countries and cultures and feel grateful for it. And at the end of the day, it just reinforces the idea that we are all humans, right? We all have similar needs. We all have similar desires, and that what we want is peace on this planet. And so, in today's society where things are it's just everything's on edge, just hope cooler heads will prevail and we'll be able to achieve a long-lasting peace broadly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I appreciate the cooler heads, man, because like we're not perfect and things can just hit the fan like none other. And I can only imagine like what it takes to actually like, sell a company, or even obviously running your own ship, as you could say, well too. And so, can you kind of like go into a little bit of like maybe the evolution of like SaaS, like finance and like go-to market strategies?
Sure.
Because here's the thing too, because I also know when you go and travel in these different cultures, that's what sparked it. I was like, I wonder what type of things you experience in the military. Oftentimes I find out that a lot of people in the military grab different culture experiences, which helps them out with like leadership and running businesses, but also running their family. It's a holistic thing.
Yeah.
And I wonder kind of like, what did you see due to your experience in the military? How are you able to adapt? I think that's the really question I'm trying to get after is, what are you seeing in the evolution of SaaS finance and like market strategies?
So kind of two different questions. Let me take one and I'll come back to the other one.
Yeah,
so with regards to the military,
there's so much stuff, man. So exciting.
what I usually tell people is, look, the military, obviously it teaches you discipline, and you're not doing it for money. So you're there in service of the country, and you're doing it for a higher purpose, mission oriented. And so I do think the discipline part translates into business. No doubt. I think the other part around being of service translates in terms of if you're going to be a leader, one of those models is servant leadership, is how do you unlock the potential of the people that you're working with? And that really is one of the things I find most grateful. And so that orientation to wanting to invest in people, invest in achieving the mission, I think is very military, rooted in the military. Anybody going to the military, again, is not doing it for money. They're doing it for a higher purpose, I think. Or they may be going to jail, and the option is jail or the military. And that fortunately wasn't me, but I did have people working for me that was probably true. I think the other thing about the military I talk about is, and having gone to the Naval Academy in particular, any of the service academies are probably similar. It's you learn how to be a follower first. And so a follower means you learn how to take directions, you learn how to clarify the direction that has been given, and you learn about accountability. And that if you've been given the task, you need to get it done, you need to get it done right, you need to get it done on time. And so you learn how to be a follower first, and then you become a leader. You earn the right to be a leader. And a leader is someone who then is in service of those followers, right? The people that are working for them to go achieve the mission. And most of the time you're kind of like, hey, let's talk about it. What do you want to do? But sometimes you got to say, no, this is what we're going to do, and I need you to go do it. And I would say that distinction about what is the decision or what's the task that needs to be done, who's going to do it, what does success look like, does everyone understand what needs to happen because you've gone through a planning exercise, execute, and then come back and debrief. And so postmortems and all of that, and figure out how that applies. Directly applicable to the civilian sector and SaaS in particular. And I think one of the things to make this bridge, it may be hard, but I'll make the bridge into running SaaS finance companies, is you have a lot of data. You have so much data, it's overwhelming in terms of the amount of data you can be reviewing, consuming, reviewing, and trying to figure out what's going on. So one of the skills is how do you discern the most important data, and we'll get into that in terms of which data you're using and which metrics and ratios you're using to run your company. But that was very similar. Like when I was, I flew in A6 Intruders as bombardier navigator. You're moving at 500 miles an hour at 200 feet above the ground at night. And what do you have? You have a radar in front of you, and you got a bunch of instruments, and you got to be able to fly the plane, and you got to be able to prosecute the target, and you got to be able to land, right? So you have all of these things kind of playing out at 500 miles an hour, and so you have to be able to consume the data and then make decisions on what's working. Get fuel. Is your oil pressure okay? Is blah 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 blah. And I think for when I always talk to people about SaaS operating metrics in this context, is I think of it as a business radar. What are you using to help you understand what's happening with the business? So, for example, CAC, customer acquisition cost, is one of these classic metrics that people use to determine how much money can I spend to acquire each customer. Well, there's a new CAC and there's an expansion CAC. So for new CAC, it's for new customers. Expansion CAC is, well, how much money are you investing in your current customers to drive business forward? So it's an interesting concept. It has data you can look at, and you could do experiments. You could launch a new pricing initiative. You could launch a new promotional initiative. You could hire more salespeople. You could invest more marketing dollars, like digital marketing, and all of that would be expenses that you'd be investing in your CAC, and you'd be using that data to better inform what your go-to-market strategies would be. Hey, Cynthia, I just got a note from Matt that he could be here at my
We lost internet there. Yes. Lost some internet there. We'll be getting Randy back on. This has never happened. And good times. So let's see here. Just texting him now. There we go. Good times, man.
All right.
All right. There we go. All right. So we're still good. We're still recording now, and I've already let them know. We had some internet issues, and
Okay.
funny story, man. We had a tornado last week.
Oh, where are you?
But I'm in Louisville, Kentucky,
Oh, okay.
by the way. Yeah, man. And so basically, we had actually not just one tornado, but two tornadoes, and one was like on Saturday. And then the week, or on that week, last week, it was around Thursday. But honestly, we can go ahead and pick up where we left off.
Sure. I don't remember where. What did you hear last?
I know it, right? We were talking about cultures, like finding different culture shifts and making those changes to run a SaaS company. And we were talking about how you see a lot of things in an airplane. You see different radars,
business radar.
Yes.
Did you hear the story about CAC?
You were just beginning CAC.
Okay.
Actually,
I can repeat.
That's
go there.
beautiful. That's beautiful. Yes. There we go. Also, I'm bringing back up some stuff. There we go.
And I do have to jump at noon, so we got 25 minutes
Okay.
Or 35 minutes.
That should be fine.
Okay.
You should be fine, brother. If
All
anything, I want to make the most of it while we're here.
Yeah, right.
And just go from there. You know?
All right, cool.
Yeah, man. So, but yeah, like, different culture shifts.
Yeah, sure.
Going into
pick up the CAC thing and we can go there.
Yeah, that's
hit
perfect.
Record?
Oh no, we're good.
We're
all
good. Okay.
Actually.
All right.
Yep.
Well, here we go. Well, yeah. So Kyle, the thing I was talking about was in the airplane, you would have this radar and you have all these instruments. And what I found is what's super interesting about being in software as a service is you have an enormous amount of data that's coming at you, and what you need to build is a business radar. And so we can get into a couple of different components. I'll use one example: CAC, customer acquisition cost. Customer acquisition cost is basically how much money are you spending to acquire new ARR. What's interesting about it is you can split that into new and expansion CAC. And so new CAC is how much are you spending to acquire new logos, and expansion CAC is how much are you spending to get current customers to buy more, spend more. And then you got to load in all your expenses. And so you can see it's a simple concept at the high level, customer acquisition cost. But there's all these components, and you need to have the data and infrastructure in place to be able to support that business radar. And so we can talk about a bunch of different radar or instruments that you're watching in SaaS companies to understand what's happening. But CAC is one of the most essential to determine, are you efficient at getting new customers? The other one I would just mention, and then we can move on, is gross retention. So gross retention is of the customers you're keeping, both in terms of number, like logos, and overall dollars, which would be usually in your ARR. How much are you keeping year over year? And one of the benchmarks people talk about is in B2B SaaS, it may be different in B2C and other industries, you're looking to have more than 90%. So at the beginning of your year in January of 2025, you have 100 customers. You want to have 9 of those at the end of the year. You can use the same thing on the revenue. You have $100,000. You want 90,000 at the end of the year. That gross retention is showing you how effective you are at delivering value to your customers and making the offering something that they want to continue to buy and invest in. And so those two metrics, just even those two simple metrics, is CAC and gross retention, can give anyone who's looking at your business a very good sense of, how are you doing at acquiring and keeping customers?
I just got done doing a training the other day, and it was just talking about unit economics.
Yeah.
And what I thought was absolutely beautiful is like some people, you don't realize like that a lot of times companies who aren't getting to that next level, I'll say like from 5 million to 10 million, like going from there and getting to like that first 100 million, for example, is like, it was really cool to see how they broke it down with unit economics. And the thing is, I think about is, this one was a bootstrap company now. And I know like when you're not bootstrapping, it's different, but like with bootstrapping, I know we're trying to aim for like a 6-to-1 payback ratio. And that's what
a 6-to-1 payback ratio in terms of how many dollars you've invested versus how much you're going to get from that customer.
I apologize. 6 months of actually
CAC payback.
money.
So how long it takes you to get your money back from what you invested. Yeah.
Yes.
That's incredible. I mean, in B2B SaaS, we would use 12 months is considered good.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And so 18 months is kind of determined. But yeah, that is the payback ratio we'd call the CAC payback ratio. You spent this money because in B2B SaaS, you spend a lot of money up front in terms of salespeople, technology, deployment, implementation. You put all this investment in them. You need to figure out, based on how much you can, to your point, unit cost economics, how much can you afford to do to try to get a payback of 6 months.
And some people don't invest enough money for sales growth. And it's just sometimes as simple as that. Or if their retention is like not as good, like the churn, it's like, okay, well, are you investing into customer success? What's that look like?
Totally.
Technology, what's that look like? And it's crazy how like these like different things. I'm excited about this because I'm obviously diving into it myself a little bit deeper, all things considered.
But let me just throw one thing out for you. So unit cost economics, for people who may not know, is it comes from like a manufacturing term. Like, how much does it cost to produce an item? So in this case, a car, there's a unit cost. And you can take all your costs. So like you have a factory, you have robots that are building that cost, and you can turn them into variable costs. And so for each one of those units, you assign a certain value of dollars. And so now you know how much it costs. In the SaaS world, you're not selling cars, you're kind of getting people up and running. And so what you find is unit cost mentality or modality is about understanding how much is costing you to acquire an individual customer. And what you find is not all customers are equal. Some customers suck up a lot of time. Some customers are easy and going. And not all small customers are easy. Sometimes small customers are really hard to get up and running, have a lot of questions. And so what you want to do is have a segmented approach to how you go to market and think about the different types of cohorts of customers you're going after. And you use unit cost analysis to help you understand what is it costing you to get one of those customers. So then you can start to think about profitability. Are you making money on that customer? If you're not, you need to change one of two things. Either increase price or you reduce the cost to serve. And you would be surprised about how many companies, especially to your point, are north of about $1 million or $2 million, and they start to move to an accrual-based accounting construct. They don't understand where they're making money and where they're losing money with the customers that they have acquired. And so you have to have all your systems kind of tuned to get you a unit cost analysis.
That's so beautiful. Like that's just been such like a wake up call for me, because like I'll speak to my internet people, like literally everyone wants to say, hey, I got this paid in full customer. It was let's say 10 grand or whatever. However, when you dive into the numbers after the paying back, like the sales commission, the marketing spend, technology, everything that Randy was just talking about, sometimes you'll find that literally you'll see more profitability in
Mm-hmm.
something that has a less price than a different done for you service. Just like, if I'm going to pay a team 10 grand to service a 10 grand a month client, well, in the long run, I could potentially make more. However, if it's just a one-time deal, I mean, you just broke even and didn't really do a whole bunch there. And so,
Well,
like,
I think
that's
that's
what
right,
kind of
and I
bridged
think
the gap
that's
for us.
that is one of the real keys in terms of understanding. You got to load up all your costs, right? And people don't. They may say, "Oh, well, I did a call or I took them out to dinner." But if you got a back end, you got software, you got other people that are supporting it. You got to load that in as well and understand what's your full cost. And that goes back to the customer acquisition cost, CAC, because that's a per customer type metric, and that includes all your marketing, all your sales. It includes technology, et cetera. And so I do think it's really important to understand how you're investing in the different components, primarily either R&D, you're developing product, sales and marketing, or G&A, you're taking care of the company. How you're doing those relative investments and how do they pay off?
I think about your article, right? And another thing you talked about was operating in your ignorance as you're
Yeah,
learning to become a
yeah.
CEO.
Yep.
And I think about, I want to ask, when did you start getting serious about your numbers?
Mm.
And when you dove into a new company, well, actually, when did you get serious about your numbers? And then we'll dive into
Yeah, it's a
okay,
great
you
question.
dealing with the CEO side of
Yeah,
things.
I mean, look, if you're in business, you got to know numbers, right? And
Yeah.
so I came out of the military, and we had numbers, but not in the same way. You weren't running spreadsheets, you weren't like building analyses. So I went to business school and I learned how to use Excel. And today, I think all you young folks are using like GDocs, whatever. It doesn't matter. You got to be able to build. You got to be able to build models and be comfortable and fluent in mathematics, and then get fluent in finance and accounting. And so anybody who's running their own business, I really encourage you, you don't have to go to full-time business school, but go take a class in accounting. Go take a class in finance. And the reason is because accounting is the language of business, and it comes down to numbers. And if you don't understand how a P&L is constructed, or a cash flow statement is constructed, or a balance sheet is constructed, you as an operator are going to miss the three most important financial statements that tell you the health of your business. On top of that, you layer in all these operating metrics that are, what we can get to in a second. But you got to learn accounting, and then you start to learn about finance. And then I think as you go through your career, so I came out of the military, went to business school, started off as a product manager. Every stage that I was in required understanding data, different types of data. But I wanted to be a CEO, so I knew I started work on a P&L and started thinking about what a general manager would think about in terms of investments and returns. Where are you investing the money, and what's the expected return? And so I think it's an ongoing process, Kyle. I will tell you one thing interesting. So I went to Rocket Fuel, which is a public company, and was CEO. We ended up selling that thing in 2 years. And I had a strong CFO. I had to turn over the CFO, but ended up with a CFO who helped. And your CFO is the person who's primarily responsible for understanding the numbers, the financial metrics of the company, and that's what they get trained. They're CPAs, most of them, and they spend their entire career there. So they're the ones supposed to be your experts. But as CEO, you got to have a pretty good sense of what's going on as well and understand the numbers and the trends. And so we sold Rocket Fuel, and it was wild, man. It was like a falling knife. It was absolutely crazy. I'm grateful that we were able to sell it. I thought we were going to burn out. And so we sold it. And then I went and took a course at Stanford on finance for non-finance executives because I just wanted to go back and figure out what the hell happened. Because I had taken
get a better
corporate
handle on
finance,
things.
in 1998 and 2000 when I was in business school. I was CEO of Rocket Fuel in 2015. So it had been 10 or 15 years since I had been asked to think about broad financial business modeling and outputs. And it was fascinating. I learned so much, and it was a huge lesson learned. So I every month I do a report. I write it, which is the end of month report. I take all the input from sales and marketing, from the finance team, from the customer success team. I run all the numbers, and I represent the business, and I share that with my executive team. I share it with the board, and I share it with the leadership cadre. In part because I want to be on top of the numbers. I don't delegate it to the CFO. The CFO provides some input, and they may do like the 13-week cash forecast. They may clarify some puts and takes in terms of primarily cash, what's happening. But it is a practice that I do every month, is a monthly review, an end of month summary. And I would recommend to any of the people on your listening to the podcast, if they're not doing a monthly end of month report for their business and they're the CEO or founder, they're missing the opportunity to really understand what's going on. And it's a combination of your accounting data and operating data. And that helps you understand what's happening across how effective you are at acquiring customers, keeping customers.
You know, like, so, and it's like, you're also preaching to me, man. Like, straight up. Like, what I ended up doing is like, after the company like got acquired, they still want me to market for their portfolio of companies. So I'm helping out with like the media buy.
Good.
Okay.
Good.
And different role for sure. And I've done it for a while, but at this capacity, it's a little bit different because, and so now I'm like, I have my own metrics. Okay. How much can we actually afford to get? And like the owner of these portfolio of companies was like, hey man, so like, what's the CAC and LTV and all this stuff? And I'm like, that's a good question. Let me go check that out real quick. And I should have known it by heart. And now like, it's like, okay, we can now XYZ. Like this is.
I'd recommend to you and all your guests who may not be as familiar with SaaS operating metrics to take a course by Ben Murray. He's one of the best people out there. He's the SaaS CFO. You can go to his website. We can put it in the show notes. I took the course when I came to Maxio. I'd run a SaaS company, but I was like, I'm going to the company that is the source of truth for all operating metrics. I better figure this out at the next level of detail. And I took his course. It was awesome. And they had finance people there who were trying to learn SaaS, who'd not been in SaaS. They had people like me who'd not been, deep in it before. Totally worth it. He's a great guy. Number 2, I recommend people to follow Ray Reich, R-I-K-E, at Benchmarket. I think it's called AI or .com. He puts out a report, and that report covers all of these metrics. And he has a survey where a bunch of people put in the information so you can start to see what your benchmark is for size.
There it is. I just found it.
Yeah, great. Those two sources, Ben Murray, SaaS CFO, and Ray Reich, CEO of Benchmarket, awesome sources of information. And then to your point, like I think what happens is, let's see. Yep, that's Benchmarket. That's him, the Ray at benchmarket.ai. So it is .ai. And Ben Murray, great guy. What you were just pointing to about being responsible now for running marketing on behalf. Are you doing it on behalf of all the portfolio companies?
Yes. So they have a couple. They have one. So right now they have one main one. They're in the mortgage space. Mine was the annuities. So we're in that space, and then we want to get into and real estate. And so what the day-to-day looks like, just from like a high level view, is like I use a software called Hyros. It gets connected into the ad account, and I'm able at least to optimize like, hey, like what's it costing per trial to work. So
you're dealing now with that upper funnel marketing funnel stuff. And so, visitors to marketing qualified leads, MQLs to SAL, sales accepted leads to SAOs, sales accepted opportunities, and how does it play the conversion analysis? And I guess the broader point is, you make my operating heart beat faster, is I think everyone should have a scorecard. So you have a corporate scorecard, and you'll see this in my 8 Secrets of Success for SaaS CEOs. How do you align the company and how do you align the board? Is you get aligned on what are the 5 things you want to accomplish, right? And then you have to define what are the metrics you're going to use to measure that. So as we were talking about before, is what's the instrument that you need? Is it your gas gauge? Is it your oil pressure? Is it your ...
There it is.
And then you find your target. And you define that target either based on a historical trend, or if you don't know the historical trend, you can go out and look for some of these benchmarks, like Ray Reich would be a great one, his survey to pull. And so you say, okay, against this target, we're going to track actuals. And every month you then talk about like what was your actual. So for example, for us for pipeline, for us to hit our target, and I'll just share it with you. We need to be generating about $1 million per month in pipeline. We look at that, excuse me, $1 million a week in pipeline. We look at that every single week, and we look at all the sources of pipeline, and we adjust our spending. Or we can spend more on LinkedIn or paid search or
Yes,
SEOs
that's what I'm
working.
diving into. Like literally right now. Yes, man. Keep going.
So you
Keep
get
going,
the
guys. This
scorecard.
is gold. This is
You get the
gold.
scorecard,
Like,
and that's what you share with your boss. And you say, "This is how I'm going to measure success. Do you agree?" And the person says, "Yes, I agree on these overall objectives. I think these are the right metrics." And if he doesn't know the metrics, then that's where you go through and you define the metrics. And then you get aligned on the targets. And your target may be cost per lead. Your target could be cost per SAO. Your target could be cost per demo. I don't, for each of those three
trial.
businesses.
Right now it's trial.
Trial, so cost per trial, right?
Mhm.
But your trial, the cost per trial could be different for each one of those businesses. So if you have a broad scorecard, you then know that for business A, it costs you $1. For business B, it costs you $2. That's just what it is. What you hope then is that business B is giving you twice the profit that business A is. And that goes back to that unit cost economics, right?
Yeah, to
And
help
so,
offset. Got it.
and so not
Got it.
every lead is equal. If some leads, like we have companies that come in that spend $7,500 a year for us, and we sell $200,000 deals. We're able to spend a lot more money and time on those $200,000 deals, and it takes longer to get done. But similarly, so for that, like we were talking about the unit cost economics, we got to be able to support that $7,500 deal. So you probably have different average ACVs or average selling
Part value.
price,
Yeah.
average selling price for your different products across your portfolio that you're now supporting. Each one of those can be reduced down to, okay, we could spend this much money to acquire them because we know they're going to stay for this long, lifetime value. If they're going to be a customer for 3 years, you know you're going to make this much money from them. And so then how much profit are you going to drive for each of those customers by business units?
Beautiful. Because I immediately think about like the most simplistic thing is like, we know that, hey, this customer lasts for 12 months and churn is 17%.
Yeah.
They pay $297 a month. That's all it is. And so it costs us to get maybe changes, but like let's just on average to cost us about $800 to get that subscription. But maybe $400 or even $300 sometimes to get the actual trial. On a paid acquisition. Now, what we have found is like, and this is to help people who are listening too. It's just like I'm finding that doing the live webinars and evergreen, like just direct, hey, start a trial, like those two vehicles for that type of service has been really, really helpful. That's just literally what we've been doing for all the SaaS companies.
That's great.
For marketing.
But let me just go back to the math because I'm a math guy now.
Yeah.
You said it was about $300 a month for 12 months.
Oh,
is that right?
No. $300 a month.
Yeah, $300 a month, but they're usually around for 12 months. So So $300 times 12 is $3,600, and you think your fully loaded cost is $800. Right?
Well, fully loaded. Well, let's just say ad spend. Like
ad spend. Okay, so ad spend of 800 to 3,600, right? So 800 divided by 3,600. So you're spending 22% on acquisition.
Yes.
Right, of ad spend.
Yes.
But I would say total go-to-market acquisition, when you think about sales and marketing, that's a pretty good ratio. But that you would need to add in all the marketing and the additional sales outside the ad spend.
Let me share my screen. I think this would just be good for anybody. And if like, hey, like where could this improve? Where could it not? I mean, where are we good?
Yeah, sure. If you're willing to share, we can take a look. But
of course.
I think the broader point is getting a clear sense of how much money you're making and how much you're paying to get to the profit, because you got to cover then all the other stuff, right? You got to cover the R&D and you got to cover the G&A, and so your gross margin, trying to figure that out. But okay.
So like I'll be in real quick, number 6, where I'm still getting a handle on right now, if I'm being transparent, because I know we spend this much in ad spend, but like this number right here, I'm still dialing in, but we could use it as an example. And this is like, these are the notes I'm getting from just training. And if you have any feedback, I mean, I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, no, it looks great. You just gotta. At number 6 is the key one, because you need to get all sales and marketing. So that includes all the teams, the benefits, travel, anything that falls. And this is where you talk to the finance guy in that OpEx. It's a operating cost center would go in there.
Okay, nice.
But yeah, okay. So this is your monthly recurring revenue, current customers, monthly account churn. I would say that 17% churn in my business is pretty high. Remember, we were talking about gross retention. You wanted north of 90%. So that would be less than 10%. In a B2C type model, 17% might be fine. Okay.
Yeah, we've definitely ran into some. Well, that's not really relevant right now, but basically, that's our highest it's been so far.
Yeah. Yeah, this is great. No, you've got it. And you've got all the right metrics in terms of CPL is cost per lead for people that are looking at this. And then we just talked about CAC, customer acquisition costs. So that's one of those costs. This is very specific for, if you look at row 18, overall CAC is exactly what I was describing in terms of total sales and marketing spend in a month divided by the overall customers acquired during a month. That means your cost to acquire a customer was $250, and that's your unit cost economics, right? And then your CAC payback period. Let's see. That looks right. And as we were talking about, 6 months is really fast to recoup your investments. 12 months.
And that was refreshing for me, man. Like, if I'm honest, like, I'm so used to not playing that game. It's more of like, because I came from the high ticket service world, I guess you could say, where, hey, you come on a demo call, we present to you, here's our, and I say high ticket, I mean, maybe it's more mid ticket, I don't know, but like, I'm talking $16,000, $20,000 marketing packages, you know, and, you know, a portion that's spend, but like, let's say the company makes 50% of that. And so I was so used to getting that amount back so fast, you know, and so like just changing my mindset of just running marketing, like that in itself was just refreshing. And even to hear you, man, like, all things considered.
Could you go back to that just a second? I want to
show.
I want to call in one point, and then another resource for you and your marketing friends. If you guys are CMOs, there's a great group. There's two of them. One is called CMO Huddle, and that's run by a guy named Drew Nizer, who is awesome. He runs Renegade Marketing. He has one of my very best books that he's written.
Who is it again?
Drew Nizer. I think it's NISSER. Just look up CMO Huddle. You can join the group, and it's a bunch of CMOs talking about how they're running marketing. There's another group which is free, which is called CMO Coffee Talk. It's put on by a guy named Matt Hines, who runs Hines Consulting out of Seattle, and a woman, Lotney, I forget her last name, but she's the CRO of 6 Sense, which is one of the very best companies out there. Sheesh. Again, you can join as a CMO or head of marketing for free. I still go to they have a weekly call on Fridays. And so last week they had Seth Godin on. We heard him talk, and it was just awesome. So, but they share all sorts of files and best practices. It's really, if you're trying to develop your skills as a marketer, it's awesome. But in this, I just wanted to draw attention to row 22. Can you go to 22? This is one of these really interesting metrics, which is a metric on top of a metric. I was trying to
spend some time to understand this too. I was like, 6-to-1, okay, like, I definitely had to take a second to understand, like, okay, if my goal is 6-to-1, you're
doing great. At 6.74, what's interesting is you're higher than what many people would say is the benchmark. So if all the other numbers have to be right. So if your dollars total sales and marketing isn't accurate, then that'll throw this off. But once you validate all your inputs, if your LTV to CAC is 6.1, that means you're not investing enough money in sales and marketing.
And that's where I'm supposed to get this number hopefully within tomorrow, because we give a commission to salespeople.
Yeah,
we give, and there's I want to get the exact number. I know that I spend $15,000 on the Meta platform right now, and that's what this represents. But I don't know everything just yet. So once I find out,
so I think you're going to find that your sales and marketing spend is going to go up when you add in all the marketing dollars. You got to put your salary in. Anybody else who's working on the marketing team, technology. If you're using technology, that needs to roll into it. But yeah,
what did you say? It almost sounds like I'm almost everything that pertains to sales and marketing is just the expenses. Like, what are you spending per month on just that?
Yeah,
because it's easy to say like, okay, what if they have nothing to do with sales and marketing?
Well, then you cut them out. So
Yeah.
that would be like
Yeah.
R&D, that would be G&A. Like those people aren't doing anything for sales and marketing. They're covered in other types of expenses like gross margin. But to get sales and marketing, you just go to your finance guy and say, show me your cost center for sales and marketing, all the dollars. And as long as that accountant has done the accounting right, it's a super easy number to get. You plug it in. I think what you're going to find is your LTV CAC is going to go down. And that it's going to be, but even then, if it's north of 3 to 1, that means you are really efficient from a software perspective. And that would be great. But Kyle, let me tell you this. I got to go in just a minute or so.
No problem,
If you want to get through your analysis and want to do another call, and it doesn't have to be on the podcast, I'm happy to take some time and just, knock the numbers around a little bit and ask some questions and help you think about it. And
well, I would love that. Before you hop out,
yeah,
talk to us a little bit about Maxio and like, what are your main goals for that? How are you helping people, and where can they find more about it?
Yeah, so Maxio.com, and what we do is we're a billing and invoicing system. So, for example, for you guys, if you're sending out your invoices, it'd be one of the questions. You mentioned subscriptions. How are you managing your subscriptions? We help you with that, billing, invoicing, and then revenue recognition and reporting. So when companies move from cash accounting and they move to accrual accounting, and they have a thing called deferred revenue, it starts to get wacky in terms of how you take your ARR that you booked, a salesperson booked, and you convert it into revenue. That is something you can do in spreadsheets. It will blow your mind how complicated it can get. And so having a system like Maxio, where we're your system of record for billing and invoicing, so we issue the bills, we issue the invoices, customers can come in and pay them, we have payments capability, all of that data then allows you to do all of these things we just talked about. You can calculate gross retention, LTV to CAC, all NRR, everything along those lines. And so it allows you, that is, closing the loop. The thing I loved about Maxio when I was recruited to join the company was it felt to me like, oh, this is the business radar. And every single B2B SaaS company, Kyle, needs what we've got, whether they buy it from us or not. There are other competitors out there. You can go look for them. But you need a billing and invoicing system. I talk about it as your back office. You need your back office engine to support your front office, which is your go-to-market engine. And in your back office, you usually have an accounting software, often called like an ERP, or a general ledger, right? And then Maxio sits between your CRM, which is your Salesforce system. It'd either be HubSpot or Salesforce mostly. And we get the contracts in, we do the billing and invoicing, and we connect with the general ledger, and we close the loop, and that gives you all the reporting.
Wow. So that's amazing because, I don't want to be shooting in the dark. I want to be sure.
Yeah, so tell your boss to give us a shout. We'll be happy to get you set up for a demo.
I love it.
Or your finance guy.
Thank you so much, Randy, for your time. I know we had that tech glitch, but I'm glad we were able to make the most of it.
Yeah, it was great.
We'll be sure to upload this episode across the channels. I hope you enjoyed your time with us as well.
Yeah. Lots
and I'll
of fun.
see you guys next time.
All right.
And I went ahead and stopped it. Just it's gonna